I told you I'm gonna do this, and so I'm going to do it. So yeah, we're starting today, I guess. It's going to be in parts, obviously, and it's going to be so. Disclaimer, right? This is going to be the commander from Guild Wars versus the warrior of light, right? I'm going to try. Emphasis on going to try to power scale them, and I've never done this before, and got no fucking idea what I'm doing. I have a plan, and we have to start from like very, very, very like low levels of facts about them. And yeah, let's see where that takes us, right? Now the thing is, I don't know too much about either, right? So we're gonna be researching in between, right? But I feel comfortable enough to start it because, for example, it's easy to set some parameters. It's easy to set like some starting factors and also things to exclude immediately, for example. And I thought, it's Saturday, might as well just stream like that, just chill here, and yap my fucking heart out to you about it, right? And what I hope this is gonna culminate to is going to be like after several streams, I'm gonna reach a point where I'll be able to comfortably, like, not debate it because nobody else is gonna be there to debate it, but to at least try and gauge them, against each other a little bit. And yeah, full disclaimer, as I said, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. It's just something that I consider is extremely fun to do, and I do watch like scaling videos, and they're very fucking entertaining and perfect background noise. So yeah, we're doing this then. It's not gonna replace anything else that I do on Saturdays. It's not gonna be what I'll always do on Saturdays, but it's definitely gonna be here from now on. And yeah, I can't promise you that it will be like 2 hours necessarily. I also can't promise you it's gonna be 5 minutes necessarily, right? It's going to be until I get bored of yapping in that current day, right? So for example, today, if I just yap now and just feel tired, I'm just gonna be like, okay, bye. All right. So yeah. Also, I don't um, purport. I don't know the right word. I don't claim to be, let's say, an expert on either of the lores, right? Either um, World of Warcraft. Nah, just kidding. Final Fantasy or Guild Wars. So yeah, I was gonna do it initially three-way, so to include like the player character from World of Warcraft, but that seems to be overly complicated at this point. Not because World of Warcraft is complicated, but because I think it kind of operates on a different level, and it wouldn't be a valid it wouldn't be a valid thing. I feel like I remember World of Warcraft started without even a main protagonist, so to speak. Sorry. Hey Neris, and speaking of Neris, who I just greeted, Neris will be a very interesting source of information as well, because his memory works a lot better than mine. So yeah, but I will be also like in between those streams. I will be fact checking and trying to dig out information of something specific. But yeah, we can start definitely by setting the losing condition, right? So what's the losing condition gonna be? I would originally say, like when I started thinking about it, I was like, okay, so that's simple. It's to the death, right? So whoever fucking kills the other person first, right, can actually deliver a killing blow first. That, however, is complicated because the Warrior of Light is tied to Hidelin, right? That means that every time that the Warrior of Light would die, as we've seen at least, as far as I remember, Hidelin would intervene and like bring them back, presumably. I'm working on the assumption that this is correct, and we haven't seen any like limitation to that. I think post Endwalker that's no longer the case because Hidelin is gone. Yeah, but we are taking. So here's the thing: let's take it easy. This is gonna be a whole fucking reverse engineering of the lore, then re-engineering it, then doing the same for like the other side, and then trying to find common ground, and then trying to start scaling. It's gonna be crazy for real. So, would you consider that the Warrior of Light is in their peak right now, or were they in their peak or in a better place, in a better position to fight when Hiddelin was around and could intervene? Let's start from there. Like, where is the peak of the Warrior of Light? I would argue that the Warrior of Light, uh, at their peak, is current Warrior of Light. Yeah, don't rail. Yeah, I also wanted to say, don't rail. I don't think we're gonna include that. It does some really weird things, and I don't like them. Similarly, I can't include Visions of Eternity. I don't know what kind of upgrades the commander gets during Visions of Eternity simply because it's not out yet. So I think if we're chopping one expansion, it's only fair to chop another from the other side, right? So for this argument, let's say that even though having a permanent resurrection, a permanent self-res is like just OP as fuck, and it would appear like that would be the peak of the Warrior of Light. In reality, losing that ability means nothing in the long term. First, because we're going to exclude this ability. So basically, the winner is whoever kills the other person, doesn't matter what happens afterwards. If the person is killed, done. That's it. If they can come back, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna take that into account or anything. It seems to be more like a plot device than it is like or something to cause like emotions, like to stir emotions, than it is like an actual ability to me, at least the way it's presented in Final Fantasy. Because, for example, a trash mob can kill you if you let it, right? And Hiddelin is not gonna like interfere in that. You're not gonna like raise in place, right? Um, I would allow like I was thinking of allowing actually Phoenix down because then I can also allow like various inventory items and gadgets to the commander, but that might actually turn out to be rather complicated due to the implications of using said items, like of the commander being able to use said items. So I'm thinking no inventory items, right? Because again, like what would the Warrior of Light even bring? Like a potion that they can use every fucking hour, you know? Firefox is stupid? What do you mean? What Firefox is stupid? Evoker in Guild Wars? Yeah, okay, so let's not go into that. I know that you're excited, but let me just, because I'm trying to kind of like, have my. I want to talk about it, right? Not the Evoker, like the scaling. So let's just keep it on track, please, because I get distracted like very easily. And for this in particular, I'd like to focus, So where was I? So I was thinking like no items at all. I think that's fair. Toolkits are a different thing. Obviously, I'm gonna allow that. So let's recap, right? Seeing that I'm not gonna count anything beyond the first death, like whoever gets wrecked first, it would seem silly and kind of biased to then take into account the Warrior of Light while they had Hiddelin on their side, right? So we're taking them as they were by the end of Dawn Trail. No, not Dawn Trail, the other one, Endwalkers, right? That's where we are. It's Endwalkers. Warrior of Light has just disposed of Meteon, blah, 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 right? So, okay, I feel that's their peak. I feel that is their peak. As for the commander, I will say, yeah, end of Janther Wilds, I guess, which doesn't really mean much, since arguably they don't really gain anything, I don't feel, but also they don't lose anything, so why not take it into account? What did we even learn to do in fucking Xanthri Wilds, mastery wise? You don't really learn anything. I guess you learn how to use a spear, sure, but like, what other power up do we even get? Like, we don't really get anything. We get the war clothes, sure, but that's not something that can bring it to the fight, I guess. Because we are also going to exclude like any external help, such as like other NPCs or allies and such. So, yeah, mounts are going to be relevant for the commander. Um, so yeah, I guess spears. I mean, but sure. I mean, whatever. Honestly. So yeah, those are gonna be the death and life kind of facts here, right? We're going to set it like that. So no Phoenix down, no potions, no nothing, and the same for the commander. And the loss condition is first person to actually just literally expire, regardless of what they could have done or what someone else could have done to bring them back and all that. Though those like bits of lore will probably come into play later when we discuss like lore feats in an effort to determine actually, who is more potent in what like category and how would that help them in a situation like that, shit like that. But yeah, as I said, we're starting like from really, really, really low. So setting the conditions and everything. Since we declared the losing state, the losing condition, we also know the winning condition by default, and I don't have to say anything about that. I will assume that not only are both combatants in their peak, I will also assume that they are not morally restrained. So they're both going for the kill. Their intent is to kill, like for both of them. It's not to wound, it's not to incapacitate, it's not to fucking talk no jutsu. It's literally for both of them to kill. So forget anything like, oh, but that's out of character. Yes, it might be out of character for the Warrior of Light, but in that regard, they've already lost then because the commander is going in for the kill for sure. So I would like it to be equal in every regard that we can make it equal in, right? So we're assuming that as well. I won't say bloodlusted, like some people like to say, because that implies that they can't control their urge to kill. I will say that their objective is to kill the other person. That is their objective, 100%. No lasting, no fucking, zerking out to the point of like can't even see in front of them, they see red or something. No, no, no. They have their faculties at 100%, but their intent is to kill. So we have also set that up. Mm, sorry, meanwhile, I'm just like slurping a Slurpee. So, and Neri, sorry for cutting you off. It's just that like I was just starting to talk about something, and you're like, "Oh, by the way, Evoker is something something potato." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." Sorry for that. It's like specifically now I want to focus on the subject. I'm really sorry for cutting you off like that. Um, and then, hmm. All right. Thanks for understanding. And so, what were we saying? Yeah, the arena. So, where are they fighting? I would say completely neutral ground, and I would also insist on no, um, no, let's say, danger of drowning or falling or anything. It's not an intricate arena. It's just like it's literally just a vacuum, like a training stage for a fighting game. Like literally, no walls. Um, because if we're starting to take things into account, like fall damage, right? You could argue, like just as an example, right? What happens? What happens to the Warrior of Light when they fall from a great height? Have you noticed? You drop to one hit point, and the next hit, somebody can literally sneeze on you, and you're gonna die until you start regenerating. So I wouldn't want that to be like a deciding factor. And at the same time, which is kind of weird to be honest, during some fights, the Warrior of Light is ragdolled like very high into the air, and then they fall down and they're fine. They're actually fine, which contradicts the falling and then getting one hit point left, right? That's a huge contradiction there. It's very difficult to kind of like reason it out, like why this happens. I just fucking can't do it. I don't fucking know. It seems to me that most likely um, the realistic version would be they fall, but then they have only one hit point, which means like yeah, you're wounded, you fucked up, you didn't die, but you're fucking destroyed. I think that's kind of more realistic to me, even though it kind of sucks. Like I really don't like how Final Fantasy does fall damage anyway. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where it's like Guild Wars, where if you fall from a certain height and above, you're going to instantly die. So what does that mean then? That like the Warrior of Light, like all the Warrior of Light has to do is like wrestle the commander, throw them as far as they can, and I believe that would be very far, and then the commander is dead because they can't fly. You know, sure they could mount, but I've already excluded mounts. And if I allow them mounts, then I'm sorry, but like Warrior of Light doesn't have anything. Like the fight just can't happen simply because they can't even reach each other. So that's kind of ridiculous. So no falling. You know that cannot be like the cause of death there. Drowning, such things cannot be the cause of death. I mean, the commander can actually breathe underwater. You can see that if you go underwater without a breathing mask, you still don't drown, which I think is a change they did. What are you saying? To be fair, Commander can cancel falling with Glider even mid combat. Yeah, I mean they can even summon the Sky Scale mid combat, and then shit gets weird. Honestly, the shit just gets weird. Um, yeah, I don't fucking know. Shit gets weird, dude. I think height and all that crap uh, should not be taken into account, like atmospheric pressure, like what happens if like they both get launched into space and then who survives. They're like, I think those are shit arguments. I don't want to do a fight like that. I will take into account though what kind of pressure each of them can withstand, for example. What kind of strength feats they have, and I'll try to find the usual calculations of like how many fucking megatons of TNT each of them equates to and all that. I'll try to do that. I'll actually try to do that. It's kind of interesting. But first, we have to kind of like peel it layer by layer here because I'm also new to it, right? So you're gonna have to be very patient with me. You're gonna have to be very patient with the format. There's going to be a lot of like backtracking, a lot of resetting the rules and resetting the limitations. It's gonna be interesting. It's just research, right? We're just gonna research this together. I feel it's gonna be interesting content, and nobody has done this before, which is super interesting. How did no one did that? I fucking don't know, but I find it so interesting. Anyway, so as I said, no falling shit. No fucking oh, I hold them under the water and they die, like, or it's like, because the commander especially, I mean, I think initially you couldn't breathe forever underwater. I seem to remember back on launch that you had a breath meter, and then once you got your first rebreather, that's where you could actually stay under permanently. That's what I seem to remember. I might be wrong. But I do remember being very surprised at the fact that like suddenly a new character can just go into the water and they no longer drown, even though they don't have a mask on them. So I'm not sure what that implies, or if it's a quality of life thing. You know, if you can always breathe underwater. Yeah, please check if you want. I mean, that's the stream, right? We're checking, we're fact checking, we're trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, as I said, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. The fact that like you don't need a rebreather, it makes you think like why the rebreather is a thing. But here's the problem. I'm going to go with the theory that the commander cannot breathe underwater, simply because if Arenanet was against the idea of rebreathers, like if Arenanet wanted the commander to not breathe underwater, why would they insist on like you know insisting on rebreathers? Because the next expansion we're getting actual legendary rebreathers. We can craft legendary rebreathers in Guild Wars now, which means that ArenaNet is not like ignoring the existence of rebreathers, which means what are their fucking function other than letting you breathe underwater? So the commander must be able to breathe underwater, right? Or rather, must need oxygen, it seems. And I have argued before that the Warrior of Light actually does not need oxygen, apparently. But even that is debatable. Like it is highly debatable because you do see them. I'm pretty sure I've seen like cutscenes where you basically asphyxiate as the Warrior of Light. I'm pretty sure like fumes and poisons have been used. I do remember being down for the count because of like chemicals in the air. So you do need to, oxygen is a thing for them. I'm not sure though. I think the fact that they breathe underwater, the Warrior of Light that is because of some kind of magical enchantment that has been bestowed upon them that is permanent. But I don't remember exactly. I think it was during Shadowbringers that they were given that ability, canonically, let's say. But I may be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm not specialist on that one. Like today, I'm gonna take some notes. I'm gonna be like, okay, let's check. Can the Warrior of Light breathe indefinitely underwater? Do they need oxygen? Like I have to take notes like that, and I should actually do that. One sec. How do we do that? Let's say we do like a text document, I guess, or a Word document, or anything. Let's just a text document will be. Let's put it like homework. Let's call it homework, and let's just open this shit and put it here, and then just type in it. So, all right. Um, Let me just also format it a little bit better. Um, like so. You can't see it, and I'm aware of that, but like you don't need to see it. That's the problem, or rather the condition here. Okay, here we go. At the same time, also save, of course. Let me just save that. Very nice. Uh, and so here's the thing. The commander has been shown to not really care. That's the problem. Because if you consider that the commander has died, canonically has died, right? And has returned from death, canonically. Yes, that will kill them. I guess it will kill their physical body, right? But then again, you see them in some environments that are quite weird. So, for example, the Mistlock Sanctuary, right? Does that shit look like it has breathable air to you? I don't fucking know. To me, it looks like a pocket dimension in space, and why would that have oxygen? I don't fucking know. It doesn't. I mean, it must, right? It must because you see vendors there, you see, and all that shit. So maybe that also has oxygen. I'm not, dude. It's difficult. Okay, I'm a noob in that. I'm just trying to fucking make it work. Where else have we seen the commander survive without external aid? I think inside a fucking volcano, for example, that would be fucking weird to exist in. Yeah, we've seen them like do some weird shit, and it's gonna come into play. But as far as like breathing goes and all that, apparently rebreather was never needed to breathe underwater, but also can't find anything conclusive. All right, I'm going to sit and say the commander breathing underwater without a rebreather is not canon. It's just quality of life. That is one school of thought. There is another school of thought which says they don't need a rebreather, but it works for them as a helmet. But that's a weak argument because they already have a helmet. So if it was the stats that they were worried about, they would just wear the helmet they're wearing. Why would they need to change, right? So I think it's quality of life that the commander can breathe underwater. I think they can't normally. I think they're more human than the warrior of light in their like physiology, their anatomy, and their like inner workings and everything. The warrior of light definitely feels a little bit uncanny valley. I would be hard pressed to call them human anymore, without meaning that they necessarily completely overshadow like the commander. But in some regards, I would be hard pressed to call them human. Um, knowing what they have uh, endured, let's say, what they've shown to endure, which aren't necessarily feats of strength or durability, but they are necessarily feats of like, oh, I don't need my internal organs, you know? Maybe they do need them in a basic level, such as like if you stab the heart, maybe they die. If you destroy the brain, maybe they die. But I haven't seen them ever take any serious damage otherwise, like hurt their leg or anything like that. They seem to be quite fucking durable in that regard, like the Warrior of Light, that is, which is strange because I think in lore you're actually just a regular ass person. I think, right? I don't think it's mentioned anywhere that you are like that you've received any equivalent of chaos, of chaos gifts from the dark gods or something that replaces your lungs with like I don't know, fucking uh, eternal like meat pumps that can never stop like providing oxygen to your brain or something. I think they're canonically just regular ass people, right? It's just that they are chosen, I guess. That sets them apart, not their actual biology or their anatomy or anything. It seems to me. But then again, being chosen the way that it's presented does seem to mean that yeah, they kind of like transcend some limitations, I guess. It's a very difficult thing to do to like to pin down exactly what the case is, and that's why I'm not doing it today. As I said, today we're gonna stick with no vacuum of space, no fucking water, no drowning, no falling, okay? Nothing like that. The arena is like completely fucking indestructible. There is no like those are the conditions. Like the arena is always permanent, it's eternal, all that. Another thing that we're gonna set down is time travel. I don't give a shit, my dude. There's not gonna be time traveling. I don't give a shit about like time shenanigans. Okay. Uh, if we choose if we choose to represent the commander with a mesmer, and we start talking about time manipulation, I'm gonna stop you right there. It's not time manipulation. It's perception manipulation, and thought like manipulation. I don't think chronomancers fuck around with time. I think they simply mess with their opponent's brain, how fast they can think, slowing them down and like shit like that. In my opinion, I cannot for a second believe that mesmers actually manipulate time. I don't think so. So I'm gonna go forth with the assumption that this is not the case, because the moment we bring time manipulation and especially time travel in this, one of those fuckers can travel back, kill the other one in their crib, and call it a day. So no shit like that, okay? No shit like that. And if we do decide to represent the commander as a mesmer, in that case, we're gonna have to check how vulnerable the warrior of light is to manipulation, right? Whether that be psychological, moral, um, mind control, like anything like that. And here I have some really bad news for the warrior of light side, because that fucker is pretty damn susceptible to that crap. I mean, numerous times, right? They fight opponents that are not even necessarily like, um, you know, planetary on scale. They're not even necessarily like country country scale, but they still affect the Warrior of Light's mind enough to make them perform actions in ways that they otherwise would have not. Yeah, so therefore against their will, or fuck with their perception of direction, or affect their motor functions. So my dude, if we allow if we allow Mesmer for the commander, I think that would be OP in the context of this fight. I think the Warrior of Light would have severe trouble. And it's not just that they're susceptible, it's also that the commander is an expert at it. Because if you think about it, the commander has retained their sanity through billions of full body transformations, through literally getting dissolved every other fight, and having no issue finding their fucking way back. For example, the Doom fight, right? They get dissolved, but you are in full control, right? You're in full control. Like there are so many things to suggest that basically the commander is a fucking fortress when it comes to like willpower and motivation and like retaining their sense of self and their self control. And so I think if those two minds were pitted against each other, it's not just that the Warrior of Light seems to be more susceptible to like a larger variety of controls, but it's also the commander who would probably be stronger in a contest of like will, believe it or not. Even though the Warrior of Light is like the typical protagonist where it's like, here's a beach episode. Oh yeah, now I'm eating everything and I'm becoming stronger, and this is my stronger arc, and like this, you know, yeah, they are that person, but physical strength isn't everything. And believing in the heart of the cards is only gonna take you like that far, for real. Ah, so I don't know. You still have like the theory of like limit break, right? Maybe they break the control with limit break. Maybe they break it with dynamis or something. How many times can you do that? Because my dude, the commander can just keep going at it. So I think we should not. We should not represent the commander as a mesmer. I think that would just break it completely, given the circumstances. We're not allowing time manipulation. The perception of time, sure. The perception of movement, like of your opponent, yes, sure, okay. If that occurs, but literally affecting time, no, that will not happen. I'm not taking that, nor time travel. So we've set this out as well. Also, obviously, no retreat, meaning that they both fight to their last. They're not going to like just give up. They're not going to surrender. They're not gonna like try to run away. They're just gonna like go for it, 100%. So what else can we set? I think we're done with that. I think we can go on to talking about, and this will probably be the last thing we're gonna talk about today. Which job? So first of all, the commander and the warrior of light are a singular person, right? But canonically, there is nothing that prevents the commander from being any class at all. right? And nothing that prevents them from having any specialization combination. However, um, they don't seem to be able to switch classes. They can switch specs, but they can't switch classes. Uh, no, I will debate that. So yes, the commander does actually learn what they learn, which by the way will come into play because they are far more experienced in that regard. They're far more experienced. They're a far more capable leader. They're far more experienced in warfare and in leading groups into battle and like all that shit. It seems to me at least, right? And I'm open to debate that. So this is gonna come into play later on when we're going to discuss like adaptability during the fight and strategy and like all that versatility and all that shit, right? Whereas the Warrior of Light, yes, they do cheat with soul stones, but it does seem it's not seamless. It does seem to me that to change, you have to have a little bit of time. So let's say that they need to focus a little bit on switching, right? Change the soul stone, equip the right kind of weapon. Yeah, but even in the trailer, right? The Warrior of Light seems to switch fast, but they still need to switch. It's not like a flip of a switch, right? If I remember the what was it, the Shadowbringers trailer, right? I don't think it's instant. I think it's implied that it would take a bit of effort. Not too much, but maybe under severe pressure, you know, it was pretty much a quick flash and then they were swapped. Yeah, but it's still like a process, right? It's not like they have everything available. They have to switch weapons. They have to, you know, to equip that soul stone, shit like that. Put it this way: do you see us do it during a fight? Let's put it this way: do you see it ever happening during a fight? No. You have to be out of the fight to do it, which means seems to imply to me that you can't really do it like effortlessly completely, right? And there is no carrying over every time that they change. I don't know if the trailers are canon because the trailers seem to be there to demonstrate, like, to hype the jobs, right? They seem to be there to hype the jobs. I think that's what the whole switching thing means. I'm not even sure if canonically the Warrior of Light can switch. You know, it was a huge debate because we're starting by assuming they can switch, but can they really though? Or is it just hype? Because did they even switch in the Endwalkers trailer? I think they were constantly. I know that they switched to another job, but it wasn't like in a blink of an eye. It was like it was implied they are now practicing that job, right? In Endwalkers, they're Paladin. Yeah, yeah. And in the other one, they're like, what are they? The Viper, I think, or something. I don't fucking remember anymore. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Sorry, and also I misspoke, by the way. Yeah, in Endwalkers, they're a Paladin. Yeah, sure. In Shadowbringers, they start as a Paladin, if I remember correctly, and then they swap 3 or 4 times. The question is, if they could do that, why is it not shown in other trailers as well? First of all, and second of all, why can't we do it mid combat? And third of all, even if you could do it mid combat, it wouldn't help too much because. But first, let's establish if it's possible to do it mid combat. I think it's not. So even if they can swap, they need a bit of time for it. That's where I'm going with. Because if you break down the trailer, it's like they get pushed back and then they retaliate by swapping and responding with an appropriate attack. And then when that gets deflected, for example, they're once again cancelled, and so they swap again. It's not like they're barraging the opponent with like multiple changes per second using every weapon. It seems to be implied that it cannot happen as rapidly as you would suggest. And again, it's backed by the fact that you can't change in combat, which, yes, it may have some roots in like balance, right? It may have some roots in like, okay, that may be balance, so that you can always define who is who. Yes, but it's not necessarily also implied that that they can become like a fucking dervish of class swapping per second, like stabbing you with 50,000 weapons per second, executing like 50,000 limit breaks per second just because they're swapping class. And like, I don't think they can do that. I think it's fair to assume that at least a little bit of effort is required. And even though even though the Warrior of Light is presented to be quite fast, it could still be argued that sufficient speed from the opposition could then pressure them into a situation where they simply just don't have time to do it. Whether it be because they need to keep up a certain defense or a certain offense or something else. It seems to me that it would require at least a small amount of focus for them to swap. So I'm willing to give. I'll tell you what. I'm willing to give the commander their weapon swap, obviously, because that's like bread and butter. I'm willing to give them one class and one build only. Yeah, and I'm willing to give the Warrior of Light the ability to swap their job, but not under pressure. And we're gonna have to define what that means by defining the speed of each of the combatants and their strength and how much they can literally keep an offensive going enough to like perhaps debate on whether or not they would actually not be able to function fully under that pressure. You remember being swapped while being actively crushed underfoot. Um, we would have to examine what that pressure of the foot is and determine whether or not that's actually a no sweat feat for the Warrior of Light. Because if it was a no sweat feat, it can be assumed that yes, they can swap if the pressure is not enough. But what if they receive an attack that far surpasses being crushed underfoot and puts them in an actual defensive position where they're not just delaying an action, but they have to actively fucking defend themselves? So there is a lot to dissect here, a lot to dissect, and I will stick to my guns. I'm gonna say that trailer seems to be an outlier. I'm gonna say that. That trailer seems to be an outlier. If I accept that the Warrior of Light can swap jobs effortlessly, not completely, but effortlessly, I then have to say that the commander can do the same for at least their specializations. At least. I don't think we want to go that route. Because I can think of some combinations from a single class that would probably just end up quite OP. It would also end up punishing the Warrior of Light way too much, even though initially it would seem the opposite. Because don't forget that when they swap, they lose everything that they previously had gained. So they will lose hit points. They're gonna lose like toughness. They're gonna lose like everything. So the Warrior of Light just being completely drained of resources. Holy shit! Compare how slow they build resources, right? Just compare. Even if we compare, and I feel like we're overreaching now. We shouldn't be discussing this, but just a quick example: Gunbreaker with Bladesworn. They're the same thing. You cannot fucking convince me they're not the same thing. But if you compare to how fucking fast the Bladesworn is to fully build up, dude, stripping the Warrior of Light from resources every time they swap, it's going to become like a shit show. Yeah, but what I'm trying to do is exactly this. I'm trying to determine, is there something in the trailer that should be taken into account? I think there is some merit to the idea that the Warrior of Light can, in fact, job swap, but I think if they can, it's limited and highly depends on the situation. Now, if you ask me if the commander can do the same, I would say it's more. That's why I also don't want to give it, right. I don't want to fucking give it to the Warrior of Light, because if I do, I have to then say, okay, then very obviously the commander can also change specializations whenever they want, and that will make them extremely versatile based on the class, like extremely versatile to the point where it's not a contest anymore. Like it will severely affect stuff. So I'm willing to go the route of the commander cannot swap specializations, cannot swap class, obviously. And the Warrior of Light can do that. They can change jobs, but it will not happen under pressure. I'm willing to go that route personally. Like giving the Warrior of Light a slight edge, like just a slight edge there. Like I wanna take that into account because it was fucking cool. The way we saw it in the trailer there was fucking cool. But and I can't, like, I don't wanna ignore it, but like if we wanted to be realistic, we would ignore it probably because it does really seem like it's there to hype like all the classes and to imply that, like, yeah, even you the bard can help, even you the dark knight can help, there seem to be going for that more than you can actually do this, like that's a function, that's a feature of the game. Like nobody who watched that trailer actually said, oh my god, we're getting the ability to job swap mid fight. Nobody said that. Did anybody fucking think that? No one. No one, right? So yeah. Nice. No, but like seriously though, like just to keep it serious for a second, right? Um, no one ever believed that by watching that trailer you should assume that swapping jobs mid-fight is going to be possible, or even if it's possible, that it's going to be easy. I think nobody thought that, right? So I think we can go on the assumption that yes, it can happen, because I don't want to downplay the Warrior of Light. I'll say it can happen, but deciding factor on that one is how much pressure is going to be. Is the Warrior of Light going to be under? In the moment, let's say. So yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's actually a fair thing to do. And again, it's also fair to say that I'm not going to allow the commander to swap classes. I'm not going to allow them to swap specializations in combat or otherwise. I think the commander is far more an as is kind of package than the Warrior of Light, you know? And it's a very interesting comparison because while swapping jobs is like, you would think adds a huge variety and like a huge versatility to the Warrior of Light, um, I would argue that most of the classes and most of the specializations, or a good number of them, are already as versatile as a Warrior of Light with job swapping. Simply because the jobs as we know them right now are completely homogenized. In essence, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm giving the Warrior of Light the ability to either be a tank, a DPS, or a healer. That's all you're doing. And most of them are going to play the same. Whereas with the Commander, if I allow them to actually spec swap mid combat, oh boy, like the fucking toolkits they can bring are immense, are ridiculous. So I'm trying to nerf the commander a little bit here. I'm trying to kind of nerf the commander a little bit, and also keep it lore friendly where, well, you can't switch class, right? You have to have an alt character. You cannot switch class. To be fair, Neri says, to be fair, for a duel like this, Warrior of Light basically would default to Paladin or Warrior. So job swapping isn't really a factor too much. It is a factor in the sense of like when it comes to determining how much damage the Warrior of Light can actually inflict on a target, were they to kill that target, then swapping quickly to Samurai, for example, might prove devastating for the commander if they allow them to do that, or if they allow them to swap to a healer momentarily and just heal up like that. Would be very very counterproductive to the commander. Would be severe obstacle. So yeah, I mean, as you know, the Warrior of Light in this duel would probably want to swap because I just cannot believe for a moment that as a tank, the Warrior of Light would be able um, to control the commander, considering what the commander can do and how much damage they can dish out, respectively. Which I mean, we're not even there yet, right? We're not even there yet. We haven't even determined, like, we haven't even brought up what feats we would have to calculate for. We just haven't, right? And that's gonna be a very interesting part, especially when it comes to speaking about the Warrior of Light's feats as demonstrated, right? And what they actually mean and what they definitely don't fucking mean, right? Because I have a lot to say there. Because a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, but you bring down a god." Well, okay, let's start defining what a god is under the context of Final Fantasy, right? Are they really gods? Because if we go by that, then I'm very sorry, but like the commander literally was able to solo a god. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm just fucking saying. So we have to determine what god means for its like universe. We have to determine how much damage each of the characters did to their respective universes, gods, for example. Like it's multifaceted, and it might end up with like, yes, the Warrior of Light would want to swap to actually cause damage, you know. In which case, swapping becomes very much a priority and will be very much a factor, you know. So I think that that was like that was not a fair statement what you did there. That like they would immediately default to Paladin and leave it at that. Because then we have to go into why would the commander not default to Guardian then? At which point can anything the Paladin do hurt them? Which brings other conversations. So I feel like here we need to determine the starting job of the Warrior of Light. And I agree that the starting job of the Warrior of Light would very likely be Paladin for many reasons, including lore reasons. It's more connected to Hiddelin, whether that exists or not. It's still the Warrior of Light. It's still a fucking Paladin. Come on, dude. It's in their character to do so. Like it is completely like supported by the lore and like what the Warrior of Light, Jesus Christ, you know, it's in the fucking title. Actually, would prioritize. I don't think it's a job that they would save as a surprise to the commander because it's not a job that is based on surprising anyone. It's a paladin. The commander will instantly recognize it because they themselves have seen or have been guardians, for example. They will definitely catch the concept. There is nothing that the Warrior of Light can bring except perhaps not even Reaper. Not even Reaper. Ironically, you know who could actually surprise the commander? The Pictomancer. That's probably the only thing that could surprise the commander, like catch them off guard. That shit could actually work, you know. Reaper, Shades, like all that, Dark Knight, like all that crap. Nah, Commander's seen it. You know, the only thing they haven't seen is fucking Pictomancer, dude. That would probably catch them off guard. But like that's for a much later discussion, like a much later chapter in this. Um, and on the other hand, the commander can bring quite a lot of things that would likely surprise the Warrior of Light, even if they have seen something similar. Because let's not forget, the Warrior of Light doesn't exactly get an A plus on fucking creativity, innovation, um, or strategy, and their experience is limited to fighting some really weird like fucking fights. I'm not gonna lie, some really weird fights, and to determine whether or not like mentally the Warrior of Light would have been able to overcome these fights canonically, we have to determine like what exactly happens during these fights, or at least some of them. We must take like a couple of iconic fights, right? Canonical versions of those fights, not their ultimates, not their because the ultimates, for example, are not canonical fights, right? I think not even Savage or Extreme is canonical. It's normal that is canonical. So we have to take that into account and see, what actually kills the Warrior of Light in that fight. Stuff like that. We really we're gonna have a lot of work, especially with the Warrior of Light. We're gonna have a lot of work to determine what can hurt them, when, how they, everything like that. But to bring it back to what I was saying before, yes, I think they're going to start as a paladin. I don't think they're. I don't think they're gonna think about surprising the commander. I think they're just gonna be like, okay, that's my comfort zone. It's tanky. It has some self-sustain. Yeah, it has mitigation. Actually, really good mitigation. Let me just be that. You know. And to be fair, last time I checked, Paladin wasn't exactly a slouch in fucking in DPSing as a tank. At least not in dungeons. But that might be old info now. I don't fucking know what's going on anymore. And then for the commander, it's a far more intricate discussion, like far more involved discussion. Like, what would the commander start as, right? And I don't want to again. Like, I feel like Mesmer would be completely OP versus the Warrior of Light. I'm not sure I want to like start with that. It feels like a little bit too much. Like canonically, it seems a little bit too much. It seems like it has the highest chances to completely fuck with the Warrior of Light. So I was gonna pick something more vanilla. I was gonna pick, and also because I'm biased and I'm doing the fucking comparison, right? So I was gonna go for either warrior, thief, or necromancer, and I had the thought about like also what you call it, um, ah ah what do you call that guy? Not elementalist, right? Sorry for a moment there, my brain fucking froze. Elementalist. There wasn't a joke in there. There was not a joke in there. Don't worry. Um, Elementalist. Yeah, I was thinking either elementalist, either necro, either warrior or thief. You could argue for guardian, and it wouldn't be far fetched, to be honest. But I feel Guardian might implicate things quite a lot more than I'm willing to go into, just because of the nature. Because again, like the lore is gonna come into play, right? So later on, it's not gonna be just about numbers and just about like kilotons of TNT or whatever. It's also going to be lore feats, like what's happened. So Guardian might complicate a little bit, might complicate things a little bit. It's a very strong choice. You know what? Maybe I should allow this as well. I guess. Yeah, okay. So yeah, these are the classes. All right. So elementalist, necro. I'm not leaning towards elementalist too much. Um, Not because they're not strong, but I don't know. I don't think I would do that. It's it's in a weird place where it's not actually a caster, which would be an interesting like archetype to pitch against the Warrior of Light, considering they can also switch to Black Mage and all that. But they just aren't the traditional mage, I think. So I don't see such a reason to include Elementalist because you got Necro in there. I would definitely include Necro because it's a very interesting comparison or direct like confrontation with like the Reaper for Warrior of Light. So that would be very interesting. So I would probably limit it to like Thief, Necro, or Warrior. I would probably go there. Again, Guardian, yes, but also no at the same time. It's kind of weird. Um, I'm not sure. It's just kind of weird. They're also very, very, very squishy, if you want my opinion, and very resource heavy as well. And I don't want something that is like extremely resource heavy, especially against somebody whom you probably are going to have to be pressuring constantly to get any results in there. So I don't know. I mean, Condi Willbender, I guess you could argue for. Again, squishy. They're very good in fucking world versus world though, and like stuff like that. So maybe they are actually geared towards. I don't fucking know. It feels like Guardian is going to have like a lot of debate in it, right? Like a lot of debate, right? Um, but yeah, here's what's gonna happen. You probably nobody's gonna give a fuck about this anyways, right? I'm just doing this, and I think nobody's gonna reply anything. But here it goes, since I have to go because I do want to end it here. Do tell me what you think. Like for next time, like a small exercise. What class and build in your preference should the commander bring, considering that they cannot swap? What would it be for you in this fight, in fighting the Warrior of Light, who can, with focus, job swap mid fight, let's say? What would you bring? My vote, I'm super biased. My vote is legitimately, believe it or not, I was gonna say straight up Bladesworn. I wouldn't do Berserker, but I would say definitely Bladesworn. But I'm also leaning towards either Condi Daredevil or Power Daredevil as well, just because of the sheer versatility and iframes. And remember, the Warrior of Light does not have iframes, whereas the Commander does have iframes as any class, and far more so as a thief. And it's it's interesting, right? But I would also say Bladesworn has a lot of merit because of the sheer like ridiculous amounts of damage potential, um, and of course the little bit of Aegis they get and the mobility they get, like the flicker step, a little bit could play a role there. If we start arguing like about lore and feats and like what they're shown to do, you know, not necessarily which class is meta because that's gonna play very specific to the game, right? So we need statements and lore and facts and everything and numbers. It's multifaceted. But yeah, sure. I'm gonna go now. That's what I wanted to start today. I wanted to set like the arena. I wanted to set the conditions for a loss, for a win, to exclude like all the boring stuff, like oh yeah, just picks him up, drops him, the other guy dies or whatever, like or just drowns him or throws him in lava or whatnot. Like I don't want any of that shit. So we kind of clarified that. No inventory items, no resurrections. Doesn't matter what happens beyond like first killing blow. Um, that's it. Yeah. So we decided Warrior of Light can job swap with effort, but also mid combat can job swap. They will start as a paladin. That's their preference. It seems to be to me at least. And then now you tell me, if I gave you the choice of Necro, Warrior, um, Thief, and also Guardian. Fuck it, also Guardian. Which one of these four, which is a permanent choice, would the commander be? in your opinion. Let's see who the fuck wins. If nobody fucking comments, which that's fine by me again, like on YouTube. That's fine by me, you fucking YouTube fucks. I'll pick one myself. Or I'll just talk about it with Neris and then pick one, with Ray and Neris, and we're gonna have a discussion and pick one. And don't forget, if you tell me which class, if you do answer, you tell me which class, then don't fucking forget to tell me which build, like which specializations and all that. Like just bring it. Let's see what you got. But keep in mind, the commander will not be able to swap under any circumstance. They will be able to weapon swap, but they won't be able to swap their specializations or traits. So yeah, keep that in mind. So that's it for today. That's first episode. Let's fucking go. I don't know. I'm fucking hyped, okay? I'm fucking childishly hyped. I'm fucking childishly hyped, okay? Because I've never done this before, and it seems to be so fucking interesting and a great pastime as well. Honestly, it seems to fit awesome with my with the stuff that I want to do on a Saturday, right? So yeah, expect to see more of that. Not necessarily the next Saturday directly, but expect more. Because I want to get to the bottom of this, even if it takes like a year or something. Also, don't expect any editing or graphical representations or any graphics or whatever. Um, in the unlikely, almost impossible chance or situation where this kind of like for some reason blows up, which it won't, like guaranteed realistically, because we're talking about me here, like a fucking nobody. But if it does, hey, maybe I will put more effort. Maybe I will end up with like something in the end, just to have like a graphic illustration of the results or some shit like that. Anything like that, right? But it won't blow up, and it's probably just you and me, baby. And that's it. And I don't mind. I don't fucking mind. I just want to fucking discuss this, right? I want to fucking settle this once and for all. So regardless of how many people are watching and how well it does, I really just fucking like the idea. So yeah, I'm gonna go through with it. But again, don't expect it every Saturday. But do expect it, because yeah, I'm not letting go. I wanna fucking conclude this for myself most of all. For myself most of all. And if anybody has like something to say, fucking comment or something, I don't know, fucking comment with like, oh, here's a statement that says that like the Warrior of Light doesn't need to breathe at all, or here's a statement that, any info like that, anything that we talked about today is appreciated. I will also try to look into it myself before we go on. And remember, this is like, I don't have the facts, okay? I don't have the facts. We're researching this together. I'm not here to scale them and debate you. I'm here to be like, all right, let's find out the truth about this. What would happen? That's all. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you found it entertaining. And I really like you. And yeah, I hope you had fun and that it was a good distraction.